Topic 1. Introduction to the sexual shadow. There's a part of ourselves that hardly ever gets spoken about openly, even in the closest conversations or quiet moments of self-reflection. The sexual shadow. This side is a hidden realm, packed with raw, confusing, and often unsettling desires. It lurks in the shadows of our psyche, away from society's gaze and even beyond our everyday awareness. The sexual shadow isn't just about love or sex in the usual sense. It's tied to much deeper themes like power, control, submission, shame, fantasy, and fear. These elements carry an intense energy that, when ignored, can silently steer our actions and decisions. Think of the sexual shadow as a mysterious locked chest inside us, filled with impulses we often deny or reject out of fear of judgment from others and from ourselves. What makes this topic even more fascinating is that it's not separate from who we are. It's deeply connected to how we relate to ourselves and those around us. When we suppress or turn away from this part, we're essentially denying a vital piece of our soul transformation. This denial creates blockages that stop us from fully manifesting our potential and living with vibrant energy, the kind that quantum manifestation calls for. This is exactly why mirror work can be such a powerful tool here. By looking at ourselves, honestly, without masks or filters, we start to recognize those hidden parts, those shadows we carry but try to avoid facing. It's an invitation to a journey that goes way beyond surface level. It's an invitation to a true spiritual awakening that begins within, by confronting what we most fear to reveal. And although this path can feel uncomfortable, it's absolutely necessary if we want to live authentically and with deep meaning. Now, imagine that this hidden side doesn't have to be a burden or source of shame. Instead, it can be a gateway to personal power and full presence. The key lies in bringing these desires and feelings into conscious awareness, not to judge, but to integrate them so they no longer control us, but become allies in our growth. This process of integration takes courage, no doubt, but it's one of the most transformative steps toward true inner freedom. And as we explore this, we're already opening the door to understanding the profound ideas Carl Jung brought to light about the sexual shadow. Topic 2. Carl Jung's concept of the sexual shadow. Carl Jung was among the first to shine a light on this elusive concept of the sexual shadow, not as something evil or dangerous, but as a natural and necessary part of the human psyche that calls for integration rather than rejection. According to Jung, the sexual shadow encompasses those parts of our sexuality that society, culture, and even ourselves label as wrong, shameful, or simply unacceptable. These rejected aspects don't disappear. They retreat into the unconscious, quietly shaping our emotions, desires, and behaviors in ways we may not fully understand. Jung's wisdom reminds us that ignoring this shadow doesn't erase it. Instead, it festers and returns in forms that disrupt our well-being and relationships. When we avoid facing our sexual shadow, the consequences ripple through many areas of our lives. Obsession and addiction can creep in, driven by the unconscious need to express what has been suppressed. Relationships may become sabotaged as emotional numbness or fear of intimacy take root, leaving us disconnected from both ourselves and others. It's like carrying an invisible weight that drags us down without our knowing why. This fragmentation is a key point Jung raised, warning us that what we don't bring into awareness eventually controls us, often in ways that feel like fate or destiny, uncontrollable and frustrating. What makes the sexual shadow particularly powerful is how intimately it's tied to identity and deep longing. It holds the parts of ourselves we're most afraid to acknowledge, because those parts challenge the image we want to present to the world and even to ourselves. Most people keep this shadow hidden, driven by societal norms or personal shame, but that very hiding strengthens the shadow's grip, making it more likely to manifest through unconscious behaviors. The process of shadow work involves courageously bringing these repressed parts into the light, starting a journey of transformation that frees us from being puppets to hidden forces. A great way to start engaging with this concept is through intentional reflection and awareness. Ask yourself, where your fears or shame about desire come from, are they inherited from family, culture, or personal experiences? By allowing yourself to feel these emotions without judgment, you start reclaiming the fragmented pieces of your sexual self. It's not about indulging every impulse, but rather about honest dialogue with yourself, a dialogue that leads to healing and empowerment. In this process, you begin transforming repressed energy into presence, agency, and ultimately, a fuller embodiment of your true self. An inspiring example of this transformation comes from many who have practiced quantum manifestation alongside shadow work. When you align with your true desires, including the parts previously hidden in the sexual shadow, you unlock new levels of energy and creativity. Joe Dispenza said, "The mind creates the reality we experience," highlighting how reprogramming your inner landscape opens the door to profound change. Integrating the sexual shadow is not only about healing wounds, but also about reclaiming your creative power and authentic expression in the world. So as you sit with these ideas, remember that facing the sexual shadow is a radical act of self-love and liberation. It challenges deeply ingrained beliefs, but promises a path toward wholeness and vitality. And yet, the story doesn't end here. There are even more ways this shadow influences our identity and behavior, shaping our everyday lives in subtle yet profound ways. Topic 3. The shadow's influence on identity and behavior. The sexual shadow runs deeper than just hidden desires. It's intricately woven into the fabric of our identity and daily behaviors. Jung famously warned, "What you do not make, conscious will come back as fate." This powerful statement reminds us that when parts of ourselves remain unseen, they don't vanish. They influence us from the shadows, often distorting our sense of who we are. The sexual shadow holds our most vulnerable wounds and primal instincts, which, when repressed, cause confusion and conflict within. This fragmentation feels like a silent battle, where one part of us yearns for expression while another part resists, creating a kind of internal schism. This internal division often plays out in how we interact with the world. For instance, someone might unconsciously chase meaningless sexual encounters or feel intense shame for natural desires. Others may develop a fear of intimacy or shut down emotionally to protect themselves from vulnerability. These behaviors aren't random, they're signals from the shadow trying to communicate. When we fail to listen, the shadow's grip tightens, shaping identity in ways that feel automatic or beyond our control. It's no surprise that many people find themselves repeating harmful patterns, stuck in cycles of dissatisfaction or self-sabotage. A key aspect of this shadow influence is the way it warps self-perception. We might label parts of ourselves as bad or unworthy, internalizing cultural taboos that dictate what's acceptable. This leads to a kind of self-hatred that cuts off vital energy and creativity, leaving us emotionally numb. The very parts we reject hold tremendous power, not just destructive, but potential sources of deep transformation if integrated consciously. Shadow work invites us to hold compassion for these hidden aspects and to see them not as enemies, but as wounded parts needing love and understanding. Practical tools like mirror work are invaluable here. When you gaze into your own eyes and speak affirmations like, "I accept all parts of myself," or "I embrace my desires without shame," you begin rewiring the subconscious narratives that govern your identity. This process might feel uncomfortable initially, confronting fears or doubts, but it gradually dissolves the walls that keep the shadow in darkness. Eckhart Tolle reminds us, true freedom occurs when you are present, and this presence opens the doorway to embodying your whole self, shadows and all. The influence of the sexual shadow also extends into relationships, where unhealed wounds can cause misunderstandings and emotional distance. When one partner carries unacknowledged shame or fear, it creates an invisible barrier that blocks intimacy. Yet when both individuals commit to their inner work, including shadow integration, relationships can evolve into spaces of deep connection and mutual healing. This transformation is part of the broader spiritual awakening journey, where relationships become mirrors reflecting back opportunities for growth and soul expansion. Ultimately, understanding how the sexual shadow shapes identity and behavior is an invitation to reclaim your power. Instead of being controlled by unconscious patterns, you can consciously choose how to respond, turning shadow energy into a source of vitality and creative expression. This integration is essential to moving forward on the path toward wholeness and sets the stage for exploring how repression impacts our lives and relationships on even deeper levels. Topic 4. Consequences of repression on life and relationships. Repression of the sexual shadow doesn't just stay locked inside. It spills over into every corner of our lives, casting shadows on our emotional well-being and the quality of our relationships. When you confront your sexual shadow with courage and compassion, you open a gateway to profound freedom, empowerment, and authentic connection, not just with others, but deeply with yourself. Imagine living without the chains of shame or fear, where your energy flows freely, your desires align with your soul's truth, and your life becomes a true expression of quantum manifestation and soul transformation. Take a moment to ask yourself, what parts of my shadow am I ready to meet today? How would my life change if I allowed myself to fully integrate these hidden aspects? Remember, this journey is deeply personal, but universally human. Each step toward awareness is a step toward healing and spiritual awakening. You are not alone. Millions are walking this path, breaking cycles, healing wounds, and awakening to the power within. The invitation is open. Will you answer? If you're ready to move beyond confusion, disconnection, and self-sabotage, start by bringing gentle curiosity to your inner world. Use tools like mirror work, meditation, and affirmations to explore your desires without judgment. Let go of societal scripts and cultural conditioning that have limited your expression. Embrace the full spectrum of who you are, knowing that integration leads to true wholeness. As Abraham Hicks says, when you are aligned with your higher self, everything flows. This alignment is within your reach. Start manifesting it today. If this message resonates with you, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell to continue receiving insights that empower your journey of self-discovery and transformation. Share your thoughts in the comments below. What shadow are you ready to face? How do you envision your life once you reclaim your wholeness? Let's create a community of healing and growth together. When we deny or suppress these powerful parts of ourselves, we create fragmentation, an internal disconnect that shows up as emotional numbness, especially during moments of intimacy. Imagine trying to connect deeply with a partner, but feeling like there's an invisible wall between you, a space where something vital is missing but can't be named. This emotional absence can be confusing and painful, both for the person repressing and for their partner. Often, partners sense this disconnection and may even blame themselves for the lack of closeness, unaware that it stems from deeper, unaddressed shadow dynamics. The silent pain that comes from repression can erode trust, create misunderstandings, and lead to a cycle of frustration and withdrawal. But the sexual shadow doesn't just influence romantic relationships, it affects our creative energies and spiritual vitality as well. When repressed, the energy that could fuel passion, innovation, and life force becomes stagnant, leaving us feeling resistant to life itself, as if something essential has been muted. Repression can also generate self-hatred and guilt, intensifying inner conflict. This not only harms self-esteem, but can lead to harmful coping mechanisms like addiction or compulsive behaviors. The energy trapped in denial becomes restless and desperate for expression, sometimes erupting in ways that feel chaotic or uncontrollable. This is why shadow integration is so vital. It transforms this imprisoned energy into conscious power and presence, turning what once divided us into a source of strength. In practical terms, working through repression requires honest self-inquiry and compassion. Asking questions like, "What am I afraid to feel?" or "Where do I hold shame?" around my desires opens the door to healing. Techniques such as meditation, breathwork, and visualization can support this process by helping us access deeper layers of consciousness and gently bring buried feelings into awareness. For example, a simple daily affirmation like, "I am safe," to feel and express my true desires can begin to soften resistance and invite integration. It's also important to recognize how societal pressures contribute to this repression. Cultural taboos and hypersexualized yet emotionally sterile environments send mixed messages that confuse and isolate individuals. We're encouraged to desire but discouraged from truly understanding or embracing those desires. This contradiction fuels a collective disconnection, making authentic relationships and spiritual awakening more challenging. The path out of this confusion lies in reclaiming our sexuality as a sacred, integrated aspect of ourselves, not something to fear or hide. As we start peeling back these layers, we find that the consequences of repression are not permanent sentences, but invitations to transformation. The energetic blocks can be released and emotional wounds healed, opening space for deeper connection with ourselves, with others, and with life itself. This journey of healing and integration naturally leads us to consider the broader societal and cultural conditioning that shapes these experiences and how we might begin to shift collective patterns toward wholeness. Topic 5: Societal Impact and Cultural Conditioning. In today's world, sexuality exists in a strange paradox. On one hand, we're immersed in a hypersexualized culture that bombards us with images, messages, and products that exploit sexuality for commercial gain. Yet, on the other hand, there's an emotional sterility, a disconnect from the true meaning and depth of sexual energy. This contradiction leaves many feeling confused, fragmented, and isolated. Society encourages desire, but often shames or silences its authentic expression, especially when it comes to the more complex layers of power, vulnerability, and shadow aspects. This cultural conditioning keeps us stuck in cycles of confusion and alienation, making it difficult to achieve true spiritual awakening and authentic connection. This disconnect is reflected in how relationships often play out. Despite being constantly exposed to sexual imagery, many people report feeling emotionally numb or unsatisfied in intimate connections. There's a pervasive sense of something missing, an absence of genuine presence and vulnerability. This emotional sterility is not a personal failing, but a symptom of a culture that commodifies sexuality without honoring its sacredness. When sexuality is treated purely as a commodity, the deeper energies that fuel soul transformation and meaningful connection get lost in the shuffle. Cultural norms also impose rigid ideas about what is acceptable or taboo, which shape how individuals relate to their own desires. These socially constructed boundaries can create intense shame and guilt, pushing many to repress or disown parts of themselves. The result is a collective shadow that festers beneath the surface, influencing behaviors and identities in unconscious ways. Mirror work invites us to confront not only our personal shadows, but also the cultural conditioning that has shaped our collective beliefs and fears around sexuality. Interestingly, while society can feel restrictive, it also presents opportunities for awakening. The very contradictions and tensions can spark curiosity and a deeper longing for truth. Many spiritual teachers emphasize the importance of reclaiming sexuality as a path to empowerment and wholeness. This involves challenging limiting beliefs and embracing the full spectrum of desire and vulnerability. Practices like conscious breathing, meditation, and quantum manifestation techniques can help us break free from cultural conditioning and reconnect with our authentic sexual selves. By recognizing the cultural forces at play, we gain perspective and compassion, not just for ourselves, but for others caught in similar struggles. This awareness encourages collective healing, moving beyond shame and repression toward a culture that honors the sacredness of sexual energy. The shift from cultural disconnection to conscious connection is a vital step in the broader journey of spiritual awakening and soul transformation. As we reflect on this, it becomes clear that healing the sexual shadow is not just a personal task, but a social one. Understanding Jung's approach to healing provides us with a practical roadmap for reclaiming our wholeness, dissolving shame, and stepping fully into our power. Topic 6. Jung's healing approach. Carl Jung's approach to healing the sexual shadow centers on awareness, the simple yet profound act of shining light on what's hidden. He taught that the first step in transformation is to question the origins of our fears and shame around desire. Where did these feelings come from? Were they handed down from family, imposed by society, or born out of personal experience? By asking these questions, we begin breaking down the walls of denial and repression that keep us fragmented. Jung emphasized that allowing ourselves to feel these emotions without judgment is crucial. It's the doorway to reclaiming the parts of ourselves that have been cast into darkness. This process of conscious exploration, often called shadow work, isn't about indulging every impulse, but about honest dialogue with the self. It requires bravery to sit with uncomfortable truths and contradictions within us. But as we open this inner conversation, we stop repeating cycles of confusion, addiction, and self-sabotage. Instead, we begin transforming repressed energy into conscious power, presence, and authentic embodiment. This is the essence of soul transformation, turning what once fragmented us into sources of strength and vitality. In practical terms, Jung's healing path encourages tools like meditation, journaling, and mirror work to foster self-awareness. For example, during meditation, you might bring attention to sensations or thoughts related to desire without trying to change or judge them. Journaling prompts such as, "What parts of my sexuality am I afraid to acknowledge?" or "How do shame and fear show up in my relationships?" can surface hidden insights. Affirmations like, "I am whole and complete," embracing all parts of myself, help reprogram limiting beliefs. These practices align closely with techniques in quantum manifestation, where shifting internal energy patterns leads to external reality changes. A powerful story illustrating Jung's healing approach is that of a woman who struggled for years with feelings of shame about her desires. Through dedicated shadow work and guided meditation, she gradually uncovered deep-seated fears rooted in childhood messages about sexuality. Instead of running from these emotions, she learned to welcome them as teachers. Over time, this courageous acceptance unlocked a newfound confidence and creative energy, transforming her relationships and life purpose. This example echoes Eckhart Tolle's words, "The true freedom occurs when you are present." Presence dissolves judgment and opens the door to wholeness. Jung's vision was radical for his time and remains deeply relevant today. Facing the sexual shadow is not a sign of weakness, but a bold reclaiming of our humanity. It's the beginning of genuine transformation and empowerment. And as we stand at this threshold, ready to meet our shadows with compassion, we prepare ourselves for the final call to action, the invitation to fully reclaim our wholeness and live fully present lives. Now that you've journeyed through the hidden layers of the sexual shadow, it's time to take a bold step forward, an invitation to reclaim your wholeness and live fully present in every moment. This path isn't about perfection or erasing parts of yourself. It's about embracing every facet of your being, especially the ones you've hidden away.